Yo, what's up, everybody? It's DFS Dudes from DFS CheatSheet.com. We are here with Ben, Chris, and David to discuss, really have a fantasy football roundtable, how the players that were drafted fit in with their new teams, what their fantasy upside and prospects are, and just kind of break down overall some of the highlights of the draft. I know there's some things that we really want to talk about on a couple of the previous videos we did that we didn't get into, mainly the thing that Chris and I have been talking about quite a bit, which was what was the best kind of video blooper or best thing that was caught on tape from somebody's home. So without further ado, what's up, guys? How you guys doing? Happy Sunday.
Happy
I'm
Sunday.
good.
What's up?
Good. Thanks for having us.
So let's jump right into it, Chris. Let's talk about the first thing that I really can't wait to talk about, which was Snatchgate, right? Which I
that's
think
what we're calling it.
You could. I've kind of nicknamed a couple of instances, right? You've got Dipgate, right, which is Vrabel.
Yeah,
You've got Doggate, right, which is Belichick.
correct.
You've got Snatchgate, which I think you can put on two different situations with CeeDee Lamb's phone getting snatched, or we could call that PhoneGate, or Snatchgate could be the girlfriend getting ripped off of who was that? Who was the player?
I thought
forget
that,
who it was.
excuse me, that wasn't Isaiah Simmons.
It was Simmons, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So
She,
mom comes in and says,
So
"You're not going to snuggle up with my kid anymore while he's being drafted," and rips her off of him and out of the shot.
absolutely. So I'll just go first since I'm here. The video that I think was the best was that husky dog in Belichick's kitchen, just sitting there in front of the laptop, and it created so many memes and different things. And then you showed Josh McDaniels in another room at his own house. Nobody cared. Nobody was sitting in front of their computers as far as New England Patriots are concerned. So that's the one I like the most because I'm an animal lover, and I know the Vrabel dump guy, that was pretty good. So I mean, that video has actually two different things you can put on it. You said Dipgate, and we got dump guy. So there's a lot of different ways we can go.
And I'm leaving one out. I'd be remiss if I didn't say I'm leaving out Cliff Kingsbury and his house, right? That seems to be the talk of the draft with the players, his modern house with the big sliding glass doors open with the fire pit outside and him looking like he's on an episode of Miami Vice in the 80s.
Yeah.
So Ben, what was your favorite? We've laid out like 4 or 5. What was your favorite? What do you think? What do you think wins the night?
To me, the first thing I noticed, and I actually showed my wife later that night, it was the kid taking the dump in Vrabel's house. It was classic. It was the first thing I noticed later. It was great. It's almost kind of like he did it on purpose.
David, what do you got?
Oh, I mean, I'm a fan of the dog and the Belichick just because of being an animal lover. But I think in the end, the mom ripping the girl out of the shot, it's just you can't go wrong with that one. It's already drama starting right there.
And that led to another shot of Russell Wilson when he was drafted way back when, and he had his girlfriend with him, and she had the most unattractive look on her face, and it was a shot of that picture, and then on the bottom was when you sign a $100 million contract, and it's him wearing sunglasses, Sierra's at his side, so it's like I forget what it said. Don't count your chickens before they hatch, kind of thing, or don't.
They were engaged. That was his. Yeah, that was his.
That was his wife, actually.
I thought they were.
Oh, it was his wife. Yeah, it was.
That was his wife. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I think that opens the over/under up for how long CeeDee Lamb's girlfriend remains by his side, or if she makes it to Dallas or not.
I actually saw a thing where they said there was no way she was getting on a plane to go to Dallas with him.
I didn't think so either. It's just you're going to the Cowboys, you're their first round draft pick. There's a lot left to be done in that young kid's life.
Right. All right. So that kind of fills it out. I mean, there was a lot of cool stuff. It was actually cool to see a more maybe in-depth look and not have these guys in suit and ties paraded out on a stage, trapped in a room in some city, and actually be in the comforts of their own home with their family. The prop bet article that you wrote, you nailed quite a few of those. I think one of the ones that you missed was the champagne, and that was a pretty good bet. Your pick was a pretty good bet because of what the line was on popping champagne. I was hopeful we'd see somebody do it. I was getting a little nervous too on the 9.5 in a room, and then I kind of thought, man, there is COVID-19 going on. There is the quarantine, but then I think it was like pick 16 or pick 17, and we had like 14 people in a room. So that came through. That was a cool article. You can go to racingdudes.com, little partnership we've got going on with those guys, and you could kind of take a look back at that if you're interested in it. We're going to move on. We're going to get into more of some of the fantasy football stuff for the upcoming year and talk about the best running back fit and who you guys think is the best rookie running back who's going to be the best. I don't even mind if you guys want to get into, there's some free agent guys that have moved. Chris, you've got a handcuffs piece that you're working on that should be up on the site pretty quick.
Correct.
If you're going to elaborate, but let's start with, I think the way the question is meant to be is the best running back that's been drafted, what impact he could have or best possible situation. I know you're dying to talk about Edwards-Helaire. I'm just assuming here. But if you want to elaborate and go into best overall running back fit on new team, you guys can do that too. Chris, let's start with you and see what you're talking about.
Sure. But before I get into the running backs, I just wanted all weekend, actually starting Friday, I'm sure you guys know, I wrote an article about let's hold our horses as far as ranking these guys, right? So Thursday after the draft, all the talk was Clyde Edwards. And then every 5 minutes, someone else was drafted. And then people were on social media saying, well, this guy's going. And it's like, let's just calm down and let the weekend pass. Let's have fun. Let's relax and we'll take it in. And then last night, I got into a few exchanges with people on social media. I'm not a name caller. I don't put people down, but it's, they already have their top 20 or 30 rookie rankings. And they got people like Keyshawn Vaughn in the top 5. And it's just, some of these rankings they're so early, right? We literally don't know anything. And I'm not trying to be that guy, that contrarian guy that's saying, rankings don't matter. But at a certain point, when you get on social media like that, some of these things can be harmful and very misleading, right? And I think we're at a point now, and keep in mind, I'm new to Twitter. I'm new to social media in general. So, I mean, I've always heard about, everyone on social media, they have an opinion now. They can say whatever they want. And so when it comes to fantasy football, as far as like Twitter is concerned, there are thousands of accounts. Everybody wants their opinion heard. Everybody thinks their opinion is better than the others. And we need to slow down and keep in mind that we don't know anything. I can't stress that enough. The only thing we know is Jonathan Taylor was drafted to Indianapolis. Clyde Edwards is in Kansas City. We don't know how any depth charts are going to be, taken control of. We have a good idea, but we don't know nothing as far as that. So setting rankings in stone is it's not good. I feel like it's very detrimental to other people, maybe new fantasy players, new to dynasty leagues. They see all these rankings and they're just like on overload, and I don't think it's fair. And again, I think it's very detrimental to someone's, let's say, their psyche when they want to get into fantasy football.
Here's the thing. You talked about this a couple of times the last couple of days doing these videos, where there's a ton of people that they're taking zero football information or putting it in, they're not putting it in reality terms, they're living in fantasy terms. So to say Keyshawn Vaughn, and I'd love for you to forward me that article. I'd love to see that guy's top 20 rankings where he's got Keyshawn Vaughn as a top 5 rookie. That's insane. You're looking, and I'm just going to talk from a football standpoint. You've got Ronald Jones there. We talked about him when we did our draft. To think that Keyshawn Vaughn is going to come in there and he's going to take that spot and be a top 5 rookie is I think borderline ridiculous, because I'll tell you what he's going to be. He's going to be a third down running back there. That's what his skill set. He's going to come in. He's going to catch the ball out of the backfield. He'll have an impact. I don't see him being a top 5 rookie. And if we're talking about most impactful running backs in the teams, they're new teams. I don't see how he is. You have to assume one thing too. People will always try to make correlations because it's the easiest way to do research. You could say, oh, they took Keyshawn Vaughn. Yeah, he's a real skilled guy. He can catch the ball, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You got Tom Brady, and now you're looking at a situation where you got a pass catching running back, and this is going to be a situation like New England. You have no idea. It's a completely different system. It's a completely different offense. You have no clue how he's going to be used. We haven't even had a mini camp yet or a rookie OTA. So, yeah, I would agree with you on that. So, transitioning from that, who do you got? Tell me what you're thinking as far as impact players and running backs.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I think Cam Akers out there in Los Angeles, he's, in my opinion, is probably going to be one of the more impactful backs coming into this year. He may not start right out the gate. He's probably going to do a little, sideshow out there with Henderson or whatever his name is right now. I can't think. But out there, I think for the Rams, he's very similar to what Todd Gurley was able to do with him being able to catch football and run hard downfield. I think Cam Akers is a perfect fit for the Rams.
David?
Yeah, that's exactly where I was going to go too. Everyone's talked Clyde Edwards-Helaire, blue to the face, and he definitely could have a direct impact early. But I think Akers has the best shot to getting snaps completely early there is Henderson, who they drafted last year, but I think Akers is a better prospect than him. So I think he has the best opportunity to get snaps and start day one. So he could be the most impactful early on.
What I find interesting is the fact, DeAndre Swift, Georgia's stud running back, went to Detroit. So everyone instantly, they buried Kerryon Johnson. A.J. Dillon, Boston College's running back, was drafted by Green Bay. So people buried Aaron Jones. Out of all those things, I like Dobbins the best. He went to Baltimore. We know Ingram this is going to be his year 31, his age 31 season. And we know what he can do. We know what he brings. I love that pick. They actually, to get off topic for a second, Baltimore in general had a fantastic draft, but I like Dobbins infused in that setting, because aside from Ingram, they really don't have what they had. Justice Hill, maybe there, Gus Edwards, not really lighting the world on fire. They were on the roster last year. I think Dobbins comes in, and in this case, I think he instantly climbs the depth chart, and he's the number 2 in Baltimore. I think given Ingram's contract and his work ethic and his personality, what he brings to the city and that team, they're not just going to sweep him under the rug. But I do believe as the season progresses, Dobbins is going to wind up being one of the best rookie running backs drafted this season.
I agree there. And I think Dobbins, especially for like a dynasty purpose, he's going to probably get more work towards the end of the year, but he's going to be the guy that you want to own now, because 2021 is where he's going to be a top 10 potential back.
Absolutely.
So,
and
I'm going to say this, because we talked about Keyshawn Vaughn, and that's kind of what we transitioned into this topic on. I'm going to just mention this. You've got James White in New England, okay? And that's a certain system. That's a Josh McDaniels system that has nothing to do with Bruce Arians, right? And that is what my point is going to be, is that the best drafted player, running back, in my opinion, that has the best opportunity to have the biggest impact, because we know the system that he's going into and who the play caller is. And it may be the easiest pick to take, but it is Edwards-Helaire. And I mentioned this when we were doing the draft video a couple of days ago. Andy Reid, for his career, has called more screen passes than any offensive coordinator or play caller in the NFL. And you're talking about a kid who had 50-plus catches in college, who's a really good receiving running back. The running back situation in Kansas City, they don't have a bona fide running back to go into. So you're talking about a kid who, 1, gets to go into camp and compete for the starting job as the running back, and 2, you're talking about a kid who gets to go in there who is a pass-catching running back for a team that threw the ball 62% of the time last year. So to me, it is a no-brainer. It's an easy pick. It seems like low-hanging fruit, but in my opinion, it's him. The other guys, I would agree with Cam Akers in Los Angeles as having a chance to be an impact player, but we don't know if what they've done with what they did with Gurley in the past was 100% based on the arthritis in the knees that he had going on. And if they got rid of him because of the arthritis in the knees, you have to think that a team is not going to go pick Gurley up if they're worried about arthritis in the knees. So is that the system that the Rams have? Do they want to have a 2 and 3 back system? And Gurley just didn't want to be a part of that, and they agreed to just mutually kind of part ways with that. So for me, I'm looking at it from the system. I'm looking at it from what we know, which is we know Andy Reid. We know what type of offense Andy Reid runs. He's always loved to throw the shit out of the football. And to me, that's why I'm going to go with him. I just think that it is low-hanging fruit, but we know the system. We know the type of player, and it's a really good fit.
I agree with you, yes.
So we'll move on and we'll go to wide receiver. And who are you guys thinking are the most impactful wide receivers taken in the draft? Maybe talk about an upside guy and a guy who maybe is going to have an opportunity to be just a production monster.
Right off the bat, I love T. Higgins, drafted to Cincinnati. Him and Burrow will be able to grow together. I hate to say that they're familiar with each other. They didn't play on the same team, but they played against each other often. Higgins is he's a 6'4" kid that's going to be heavy red zone targets, and I feel like Burrow is going to lean on that a lot more often early on in his development, right? You know, you get down there, you got AJ Green on one side, you got Boyd, and now you got T. Higgins, and I think T. Higgins can make a real statement there. I got two upside guys. My first one is Denzel Mims, going to the Jets. The Jets, they have Darnold and they have Le'Veon Bell. So Denzel Mims will come in there, and there's some aspects of his game, like route running, he needs to improve, but that would be, you know, with some good coaching. I think that Mims has a chance here to really put a solid rookie season together. They got rid of Robbie Anderson, so everything's there for the picking. My other high upside guy, which might not see coming, David knows all about this guy, KJ Hamler from Penn State, goes to Denver now. And all of a sudden, out of the blue, all your Drew Lock stocks are like through the roof now with what they've done offensively. So KJ Hamler is kind of like a Swiss Army knife in a slot. He can do a lot of things. He's got an amazing ability to create separation. He can get a step on the other guy. I really like what he brings. And now you have Drew Lock, Cortland Sutton's there, and Melvin Gordon, Phillip Lindsay. I mean, to name a few people. So I love KJ Hamler this season in the slot for Denver.
Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I was going to look towards T. Higgins also, but Chris took him, so I'll go somewhere else. Laviska Shenault for Jacksonville, playing on the other side down there with DJ Shark. I think it's going to be a great combo. They play off of each other. I think they're going to play great with each other. If he can stay on the field, is his biggest concern right now. He's had some issues with his foot and the knee. But if he can stay on the field for Jacksonville, I think he's going to be a big-time threat down there for them, especially, you know, if Minshew's back there doing what he did last year, throwing for over 3,000 yards. My second guy I was going to look at was probably going to be – Chris is taking all my stuff, so I'm looking for somebody else here. Let's see. I'm probably going to go CeeDee Lamb. He's in a perfect fit in Dallas. He's not going to be required to do too much. He's going to do what he needs to do. He's probably not going to have 80 catches at the end of the year, but if he can come away with 40 or 50 with about 700-800 yards, I think that's going to be just about what Dallas is going to be looking for, especially considering he's going to be the third guy playing some in the slot.
David, what do you got?
Let's say to add a little tidbit to what Chris was saying about T. Higgins too. Him and Burrow were working out a little bit this offseason before the draft, so they already got a little bit of familiarity with each other. So that's something that definitely could build on for the season, especially once AJ Green's out of the picture. Higgins could step in. I agree with Mims, but another person, or the two other guys I was thinking about are Michael Pittman and San Diego, or not San Diego now, Baltimore, Indianapolis. but they have Ty. He's getting older now. Pittman's a big physical receiver. They don't really have that there. They have a lot more smaller receivers, and you got to. I mean, their quarterback now, he's getting older, and he might be on his last year or two here, but it's still a better quarterback they've had since obviously Luck left. So I think he can step in and have a big impact, especially in the red zone. And then I wouldn't say I really like it, but Ruger's spot in Philadelphia, he's got the speed, doesn't really have much competition there, so he could definitely get a lot of looks with Wentz there.
I must say that Pittman was on my short list, but I didn't want to name everybody and leave you guys all high and dry. But in the notes that I have, I saw that Pittman, he flourished in a high volume passing kind of situation. And we all know Phillip Rivers just slings the ball. So there is a lot to like there with Pittman in Indianapolis.
So let me ask you this. What do you guys, I'll give you my pick, but before I do that, what do you all think is going to happen with AJ Green?
Realistically, not to be an asshole or a jerk, I think he'll be ready for the start of the season, and something silly is going to happen to his foot or his ankle, and it's going to be all she wrote for him in Cincinnati. The guy, him and Julio Jones were in the same rookie class, and they were both on similar trajectories. And then somewhere along the line, Julio just kept going, and AJ Green stalled out because of these silly, nagging soft tissue injuries, foot and ankle injuries. And I personally do believe that last season he could have got it together and played a couple games, late in the season, but I just don't think the fire is there anymore, especially for him being in Cincinnati. So I can't speculate. I don't know. I haven't heard anything about Cincinnati wanting to trade him. I believe they franchise tagged him this season, if I'm not mistaken. So it's not like he can just walk away. But I don't think AJ is going to be in Cincinnati much longer.
So the reason why I'm asking that question is, I think AJ Green's going to ball out. I think this is going to be he's going to have a monster year. You mentioned it, and you said the soft tissue injuries. I think AJ Green made a business decision last year, and the business decision was, I've got an ankle injury. We suck. We're clearly not trying to win football games. There's not a lot of talent on this roster. I'm not going to go through a 16-game season and put myself in a situation where I can't capitalize on big money. He had leverage. If you look at the way that contracts are set up in the NFL, the players have zero leverage. They just don't have very much leverage. And you can go down the litany of players who it's happened to. Look at Le'Veon Bell. He had, the only way for him to get paid was to just sit out. And you've seen other players do that because of the franchise tag. These guys don't have any leverage. And the rookie contract situation, if you're not a top 10 pick, you're not coming into a situation where you've got very much leverage because of the length of the rookie contract to actually get paid. These guys got one chance to get paid. The franchise tag is worth $18 million. I think AJ Green made a business decision. And while I like the T. Higgins pick, I just don't know if a fully healthy AJ Green leaves enough meat on the plate for other guys to absolutely go nuts. If T. Higgins has a pretty big season, I think it's going to be because of the fact that AJ Green balls out.
It makes sense, and that's the beauty of this thing. You set it up for me. I knocked him, and then you came back and told me he was going to ball out. So it's the beauty of fantasy football. We all have an opinion, And
he's getting $18 million, right? He's going to get $18 million this year.
17.3, yeah.
So if AJ Green has a bad season last year and plays through an ankle injury, he doesn't get anywhere near $18 million because they don't franchise tag him. And he goes out on the open market, and he is a banged up wide receiver who like the Patriots would pick up, give him a contract worth $8 million or $9 million. And it's only an upside signing. If, you can release him, you can look at guys. I mean, not to mention, but a guy came from the exact same franchise and Chad Ochocinco Johnson, right? When they brought him on, it was all upside. The guy had a ton of talent, and there was the contract that he signed. If they released him, it was no sweat off their back. They just did it with Antonio Brown as well. So I think that was his way. I think AJ Green looked at it like, I'm coming into a contract year. I'm going to have to hold out because I don't want to get franchised. Let me just sit this season out. I'm not going to play banged up and put up, subpar numbers. And it's just an ankle injury. It wasn't like he didn't even break it, really. I mean, it's an ankle injury he suffered, and he never came back. So my pick as biggest impact wide receiver, I think it's Ruggs. And the reason I think it's Ruggs is because of the style of football that they're trying to play in Oakland and what they add there. They've got a really good running game. They've got a good young running back. They've got a couple of other receivers and weapons there. They've got a possession guy in Renfro. They needed a guy to take the ceiling off the defense. Ruggs provides that. I think the style of football the Raiders play, they've got a really good tight end there. And you open up the play action game. And in John Gruden's offense, there is Green open, 22 lead, 99 Y read. And I think that you're going to see that Y position where he'll come in there and play in the slot where you run a simple read route. It's a two-way read. It's you either, the safety comes down on you and you blow by him and run the 9 route. If the safety continues to drop into cover 3, you break it down and run a 10-yard in. I think that he's going to live and eat off that. And I just think he's got the biggest, from a touchdown standpoint, from a fantasy football point scoring standpoint, maybe not in a PPR world, but I think he's got the biggest upside to probably have 10, 11 touchdowns this year off big plays. I don't think the volume will be there where he's going to have, 40 catches or 45 catches. I think that they'll use him in the slot. He'll really impact the play action game and do a lot of the things that John Gruden likes to do. And if you look back at when he was with the Raiders the first time, the stuff he did with Jerry Rice and Tim Brown and the collection of weapons he had there, I think that you'll see some similarities this year.
What's great about Ruggs? Go ahead, Chris. Sorry.
No, go ahead. I was going to say nonsense.
Okay, I was going to say what's great about Ruggs is the fact that if you put him on the field with Lynn Bowden, you're going to be in a lot of trouble because you're going to have to figure out which player you want to guard going deep. And if you can't figure it out, you're going to have Renfro over in the middle underneath just eating you alive with Edwards and Williams.
And not to mention, I mean, Darren Waller is the guy they're huge on. Yes. And he had a really big year. He's a 6'6" kid. He's super athletic. And you've got him. I'm just telling you're going to have situations where there's certain staple plays of John Gruden's offense where you're going to see Renfro running a drag route. You're going to see Waller running a 10-yard to 15-yard drag route. And you're going to see the slot player running a deep dig or a read route. And it just puts a ton of conflict on the secondary. And I don't think the guy's going to be a PPR monster. I don't. I think that you're going to see the upside, though. If he's got the upside of 10 to 12 touchdowns this year off really big plays that's created through the play action game.
If you're looking towards like a fantasy comparison, you can look at Deshaun Jackson. He's not, like you said, he's not going to get you anything in PPR, but he's going to have those games where he's going to have 3 or 4 years where he's going to have 10 catches for 250 yards. So
or Will Fuller.
Yeah.
Or Will Fuller. So did I leave anybody out? Did you get on that, David?
Yeah.
All right, cool. So we'll move on. So we've got first 5 personal selections. And Chris, you can elaborate more on this. You got 1.01, 1.02, 1.03. So
yeah,
open this up.
So my question to everybody, and we'll go to Ben and then David in that order, so I don't surprise anybody. The question is simply, as it stands right now, what are your 5 personal selections in a super flex? If you 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 straight through.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to have to put, the quarterback that's going to be starting from day one. You got to put Joe Burrow up in your number 1 spot right now. Number 2, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. He's just perfect for the offense. We've been talking about it all night pretty much. Number 3, I'm still going to say it's Cam Akers right now. I think Cam Akers for the Rams is perfect. Number 4, Jerry Jeudy out there in Denver. He's going to be catching everything in sight, playing across the field from Sutton. And number 5, I'm going to also go T. Higgins because I just think out there in Cincinnati, he's just going to explode.
And say my top 5, first 3 are right on with how Ben has it is. I got Burrow, so 1-1. Normally, if you have the 1-1 and a super flex, you normally need a quarterback. At 1-2, I still have Clyde Edwards-Helaire. 3, I have Akers just because he seems like he has a position to start right away. 4, I was in between Taylor and Dobbins here at 4. I ended up going with Taylor just because the Colts have such good offensive line for blocking. If he does outplay Mac, we already seen what Mac can do. At worst, Taylor can replicate that. And then at 5, I have Tua. I mean, quarterbacks have such high value in Superflex. It's hard not to think Tua's not going to go within top 5. I can see Tua going, 1-2. It's just really going to depend on, people's rosters and stuff too. It's going to vary. But I got a couple drafts coming up, which I'm going to record the data of Chris so we can kind of get a comparison coming up soon.
What about you, Jeremy? Were you able to put one together ahead of time?
So are we talking just overall? Or are we talking rookie impact or?
We're talking your top 5 picks as you would see them in a all rookie super flex draft.
Okay, so I would agree that Burrow has to be 1, right? I mean, you go starting quarterback. I would put. We've got to see what happens in training camp. If we're saying it right now, it's simply speculative. But if they expect Tua to come in and play, I would go with those 2 guys, 1 and 2. I would go with Burrow and I would go with Tua as 1 and 2 for the simple fact that you have to go with the guy who's got the ball in his hands the most, right? We're talking about snap counts and then we're talking about production. So those guys got the ball in their hands the most. I would go with Edwards, probably Edwards-Helaire as number 3, and then beyond that, I think I'm being negligent because we don't know where these guys fit in yet. So it's really hard for me to get to a place where I can feel comfortable beyond that, saying that, a CeeDee Lamb or a Judy or, a Ruggs or even the kid out of TCU are going to have huge impacts this year. And that's who I want in an all rookie super flex. I'm comfortable saying the 2 quarterbacks and I'm really not even comfortable saying Tua because I'm not sure we know if Tua is going to start day 1, right? So that's kind of where I would leave that.
What if we were to, we're allowed to do what we want here. What if we did a top 5 minus the quarterbacks? Because that's where you start to get into some things where it's just moving around guys like Aker and Taylor and Lamb and Dobbins and Swift, and where do you put them? If you cut out the quarterbacks, right? I think I would go Akers, Helaire, Taylor, and then get like Judy and Lamb in there, and an honorable mention for like Dobbins or even Jalen Reagor. That's the TCU kid, correct, that you were talking about?
So gun to my head with that, I'd probably go Helaire, Taylor, Lamb, Dobbins. I would go running back heavy with that because from that standpoint, we're banking on and we're speculating that you drafted a running back to have an impact on your team. Maybe you can count on 10 to 12 carries out of those guys, just, the way everything stands right now. So I would probably go more running back heavy. And that's kind of where I would lead with that.
Absolutely. I agree with you.
So
go ahead.
No, go ahead.
I was just going to defer to you for our next topic, our next subject.
Which is kind of apropos, I guess, because the next topic is what starting running back is most affected. And I'll lead this off because I don't think it's a starting running back that's been most affected. I think that when you look back at the draft and you look at the head scratchers, which we've kind of got into, the biggest head scratcher of the draft for everybody was Green Bay taking Jordan Love and then taking a running back, A.J. Dillon, in the second round, right? Like, what are you doing taking a running back? You've got Aaron Jones on your roster. And I had to look into that because I was very confused by it. And one of the things that kind of struck me was the reason the Packers have been a franchise that's been competitive year in and year out is they don't draft for what they need now. They never have. The Packers, and maybe that's why it was so head scratching this year, because they had some glaring needs at wide receiver that they just passed on. But the Packers as an organization have never been an organization, and Aaron Rodgers is the exact same age Brett Favre was when they drafted Aaron
drafted
Rodgers.
him, yeah.
Right. So, but my point here is I think Jamal Williams is the guy who's most affected by this. I think that he's the most affected player. After looking into it, they made this draft pick because they wanted the kid to play. They think he's a really good fit for the H-back position. And in the West Coast offense, it's a hybrid tight end, a guy that he'll line up what we call East and West, which is more in a flex spot outside of a tight end or outside of a tackle, left or right side, a guy who can do a little blocking, a guy who can get involved in the screen game. And if you think about that, that's really what the role Jamal Williams had on this roster. He played a lot of that H-back. He did come in. He would get a third down carry. They would go with the hot hand once in a while. But to me, I think that this doesn't affect Aaron Jones. I think it affects Jamal Williams, and I think that that's a split backfield situation. So maybe I'm reaching with the starting running back that it impacts the most, but I think you're splitting hairs a little bit as calling one of those guys, Aaron Jones, Jamal Williams, a starting running back.
Absolutely. I agree with you. There's a few things that we could talk about here. I mean, heck, I kind of wrote an article about this on Friday and early Saturday. If you look at the situation, I'll speak to what I know most, and that's Detroit Lions football. Is the selection of Swift does that completely bury Kerryon Johnson and throw him out of the picture? Well, yes and no. So I would look like an idiot if I agreed with myself after saying it. I didn't believe that's the case. It could be a simple fact that Swift was the best available player on the board at that time. And are they looking to light a fire under Kerryon's ass? But it has nothing to do with his production, because he hasn't even been on the field to produce anything. So I think it's almost like I don't want to say a backup plan, but I could see a situation where my phone doesn't fall and I could actually, finish with what I was saying. So Swift in Detroit is not as big of a deal as people are thinking of. Along the same vein as Jamal Williams, what happens now in Indianapolis? Taylor is clearly going to be their lead back, so that moves Mack to a backup role. And then there was this guy, his name's Nyheim Hines. All these people think he's one of the best handcuffs to own, right? So he's completely fallen off. So again, a video and a topic like this it's all speculative. It's just our opinions. Maybe just get together, see each other, chat a little bit, but it's all a guessing game at this point to me. But what do you think, Ben?
Ben, I don't mean to cut you off, but I want to piggyback on what you said real quick. I have an opinion on this. Another one that when it happened, it's a little bit head scratching. And then me being who I am, I've got to look into this and do a little research and figure out kind of what the motive is. And where did Matt Patricia come from? He came from, he's a Patriots guy, right? They've handled drafts since he's been there by accumulating picks, trading back. He's done things the Patriot way. And if you look at the Patriot rosters when they went to Super Bowls, they were 3 to 4 running backs deep. And I used to say in daily, if you show me a Patriots spread that is more than 12 points, give me LeGarrette Blount, because the Patriots are going to throw the ball. They're going to get out to a lead, and LeGarrette Blount is going to have a monster second half of the game, and he's going to maybe have an opportunity to have 2 or 3 touchdown upside in the second half because the spread's so big. I think that this draft pick gave Detroit that type of roster and that type of depth. It gives them a guy. Kerryon Johnson has not shown, like you said, he hasn't been healthy long enough to actually show what he can do. But one thing that I'm pretty confident he's not is a pass-catching running back. And I think that the Swift pick, it gives them a guy who is a two-way back. He can bang it between the tackles. He gives you speed on the perimeter. We talked about Bo Scarborough still being there. He's a beater, right? I mean, that guy can get in between the tackles and he can just get downhill and plow. Maybe that's your red zone type guy. And I think that it gives them a really good 3-back situation. It was a steal of a pick, that value that was available at that spot for them. We debated on if it was the right guy to go to, but I think you're seeing them build a roster out that is New England-esque. And I think that's what that pick is. And to me, when you look at it from that standpoint, it makes a ton of sense.
Are you having some sort of party at your house? There's just people.
Are you
having a nail salon party going on there?
That's going on. That's
Okay.
going on. I said it was 90 degrees yesterday here.
Yeah.
We're kind of over the quarantine. I think a lot of people in California think that it passed through here before it was even a big deal, and we're gonna enjoy the pool this afternoon.
Nice.
Oh, fantastic! I'll be on the next flight out.
Come on in.
So Ben, what's a running back, the starting running back that you think has been the most affected with the 2020 draft?
I think you have to look at Devin Singletary out in Buffalo. I mean, Zach Moss isn't, a scrub. He can do a lot of things that Singletary can do. Singletary last year didn't play very many games. I think he played like 8 or 9 games or something like that.
He started 8. Yeah.
He started 8. Okay. So he started 8 games last year, wasn't able to stay on the field. A lot of people were looking at him maybe taking a big jump this year. I'm not 100% convinced that Buffalo is thinking the same thing. And if they were, they wouldn't have taken Zach Moss. So I think Devin Singletary, for one, is one guy you got to look at maybe trying to get pretty quick.
If I remember correctly, Singletary was kind of thrust into the starting spot in week 1 because of an injury in their backfield.
Frank Gore, yeah.
Correct? So you can go back on the website and you can look at our week 1 videos. And I said back then, Devin Singletary has never proven that he can be an every down running back. He's never proven that. And he's small in stature. He's a 5'7" guy. There's not a chance in hell that he is built to be an every down running back in the NFL. So I agree with you that I think he's impacted by this, but you're bringing something up that maybe we should kind of get into after David gives us his pick, but maybe we're looking at it from the wrong standpoint. Maybe it's not which running back or starting running back is negatively impacted, but
positive.
Maybe it's a positive impact for these guys. Maybe some of these running back picks to allow the NFL is going to a 2 and 3 back system. It's been a trend going on for the last couple of years. Maybe it's a positive impact. Maybe we see a guy who only started 8 games, who is 5'7", who is small in stature, who can't be an every down running back. Maybe with this draft pick it bolsters the production of both of these guys and it positively impacts Devin Singletary.
Yeah, you're potentially taking a full workload from Carrion and Singletary, and you're condensing it into like half that, and maybe that's what they need. You know what I mean? A full workload doesn't look like it suits Carrion Johnson. Injuries, have proven that. So maybe these picks, as you said, it's more of a positive thing than a negative.
I'll go back to Andy Reid for 1 second, because of the coaches that I've studied the most, Andy Reid, John Gruden are the top 2, and then Bill Belichick. But if you take a look at Andy Reid and John Gruden are play callers. And if you take a look at any play caller's play sheet, I might even have mine right here, but you've got a section on your play sheet for each one of your players and plays that you've designed to be explosive plays for that player. And that's what I'm thinking of when I'm bringing this up. I'm thinking that you're going to see more, that these draft picks maybe don't have more to do with moving on from players, but they have more to do with creating more explosive plays by having set plays that are just for certain players. There's not very many Zekes left in the National Football League that can just give you 20 carries in a game, 16 weeks in the year.
And that would be fantastic. It just sparked the question in me. Now, do you think it would be, I've always stayed away from this, 2 running backs on the same team, aside from, let's say, a handcuff in case the number 1 goes down. But what do you guys think about an option where you can have Carrion Johnson and Swift on your team and then start them each week, or with Singletary And Moss, would you draft both guys with the idea of having them both in your starting roster each week once it's proven that that's what it's going to be, a 50-50 split?
I think that depends on. Go ahead.
I think, and we talked about this a little bit when we're talking about Burrow, right? I think that you have to talk about a system, and I think you have to take a look at who the coach is and what he's trying to accumulate, right? You could take a look at certain guys, Mike McCarthy, John Gruden, Andy Reid. I could probably list 5 or 6 offensive play calling head coaches that their job, and they're telling their general managers, give me the biggest collection of offensive talent that you can find so I can create as many explosive plays as possible. As we get into analytics and all this stuff, the 20-yard burst play and how many 20-yard burst plays you can create in the course of a football game and the correlation to wins, etc. I think that is more of what this conversation is about, right? Give me a collection of talent. I don't necessarily need one guy or 2 guys that I can, a Michael Thomas situation, right? Sean Payton's another guy who's got a monster play sheet, who's got, 600 plays in that thing, and he's got a Kamara. Here's plays for Thomas. So I don't think that I think it's the latter, not the former. I think that it's give me a collection of talent, give me the most explosive collection of players on the roster so I can create as many explosive plays during the course of a game as possible. You're seeing football evolve because of the rules. You can talk about the 2-hand touch and all this stuff, but because of it, the space that's on the football field for explosive plays and the speed that's on the field, that's where the game's going. You've got to create as many explosive plays as you can.
Do you think, just to finish this up and then we'll let David talk because we keep cutting him off. What do you think of, like, as a strategy?
It's probably why you and I need a producer for the show, because you and I are probably going for like 6 hours.
I know. We look like douchebags for it too. Like nobody can get in. But I got one more thing, and then Ben and David can carry the rest of the show. As the summer starts and we get into the summer and into the fall and more fantasy drafts, do you think that it could be a strategy where you would draft both A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, or Kerryon and Swift, or Devin and Moss? Like that's easily done. It's not like both backs, let's say A.J. Jones and A.J. Dillon are so close. Like you could draft both guys from the team, but then use that not as a handcuff, but as your 2 starting running backs. Like if you as we get into OTAs, let's say, and then preseason, we see that Kerryon and Swift it's going to be a 50-50 split. Would you be comfortable drafting both guys as your starting running backs on your team? Is that crazy to think about, or is that just a way that we have to think when we're coming up and for draft plans and like a strategic process heading into the fantasy football season?
Can I add an or onto that for him? Let me add an or, because I like where you're going with that. But is it you're drafting a handcuff the old way, right?
Correct.
You like to get the handcuff for your starting running back. Is it a situation where drafting a handcuff, you're wanting to use that player in a flex position because it's a 50-50 split? I think that may be the other way of looking at it, right? Like traditionally, you want to get the handcuff to your starting running back in case he gets hurt. But now, is it because the way that the league's going, do I start them both in a given week?
Absolutely. Like, just real quick, you could draft Devin Singletary, and then you would have no problem then drafting Zach Moss multiple rounds later. And then you got both Buffalo guys, a young upstart team made the play. Like, I mean, there's so many narratives here that you could go with. I'm going to explore this more as the weeks turn into the months and we get into the summer, but who knows? It could be a thing. And then you heard it here first, I guess.
Yeah, I think the only way you can start both those guys, it depends on how deep your league is going to be. If you're in a shallow league, it's okay to own both of them, but no way you're going to start both guys in a shallow league. If you're in a deep league, 14, 16, 18 teams, sure, you can do that because you have the flexibility because everybody doesn't have players. You're all in the same playing field, so to speak, if it's a startup. If it's a dynasty, there's just no way you're going to want to do that because you're already going to be behind the curve a little bit.
Yeah, I can get that. Yeah, I understand it. I mean, you're not going to draft Zeke Elliott and then something crazy happens and you're able to draft Aaron Jones and you're going to pass. No, I'm going to pass on Aaron Jones because I like Tony Pollard better later. I like him in that spot, you know. So it's all situational, I guess you could say, right?
Mm-hmm.
David, what's your opinion?
So I mean, I actually just acquired Singletary probably about half hour, 45 minutes before they drafted Moss in a dynasty league. So part of me is kind of, you know, scared, and then part of me isn't really, because I mean, if I'm not mistaken, Singletary was averaging 5-6 yards per carry in those games that he started for the whole year and stuff. So I mean, he showed what kind of player he can be. I think he might be kind of more of a Jamal Charles-esque, where he can make stuff happen off of 12 to 15 carries and not be a 20 plus carry kind of guy, and let Moss, who has skills. And I, you know, if you asked me while we were doing the draft process, Moss is one of my favorite running backs in this process. I think he's going to be, it's probably be more of a, I think a 60-40 type role where it will allow Singletary still be the guy, but allow Moss to have the role, like you were saying, where you can definitely flex him at times, definitely as we see how they use him. But I don't think Moss necessarily takes over the role that you're panicking, like you might be with Carry-On or Marlon Mack or someone right now with the other running backs. I think you're still pretty happy with owning Singletary and almost thinking him as that, just taking some of the, you know, letting Singletary get a breather and letting him so he can stay fresh because how electrifying he is.
Yeah, that makes sense. People are so, they freak out, you know, well, AJ Dillon was drafted, but we have this as like, let's say I'm a Green Bay fan, you know, we have Aaron Jones and we have Jamal, and then you draft Moss. Was it Moss? No, they drafted Dillon. Yeah, and you drafted AJ Dillon, and people freak out so quick when, in turn, what we just talked about, it could wind up being a blessing in disguise, where, as you just said, David, Devin is able to get 10 to 15 carries, but go nuts with each carry rather than slogging out 20, 25 carries in a game, you know?
The flip side to the conversation also is do you use a running back in your flex spot? Do you, I know if we're talking about daily and you're telling me that, let's say that Singletary is a $7,600 player on FanDuel and I can get Ruggs for $5,800, who am I playing in my flex spot, right? Do I play the running back who may have a 50-50 timeshare in the backfield and may be in a situation where it is 12 to 15 carries and he's 5'7" and Zach Moss is 5'9", 225 pounds? I'm going to look at it from the standpoint that if I'm looking for touchdown upside, I'm not touching Singletary because I'm getting more value out of possibly the upside I've got in Ruggs in that flex
Absolutely.
spot. So I think that that's an interesting conversation also. If you don't draft, so I think it kind of does another thing as well, is if in your fantasy leagues, when you're drafting, if you can't get one of those top 5 running backs, do you draft completely different? I mean, you've got to fill your roster obviously with a couple running backs, right? But you need more receivers, I think, with the way this is going. You need a better receiver, and maybe you're looking to get 3 or 4 number 1 wide receivers instead of taking, you know, the premium is not, because let's say you want running back 1, running back 2, right? Do you get more production out of 4 wide receivers, depending on the league, or 3 wide receivers than you do out of your 2 running backs if we've got all of these teams in these split situations? I think there's going to be a couple of guys like Edwards-Helaire, who's a guy you could make to put an argument in your flex spot. But if you don't come up with him, right, and you don't draft 2 solid running backs where you're in that situation, you're maybe putting Edwards-Helaire as your running back 1 or running back 2, depending on where you draft. And is it worth me picking up a third running back to play as a flex, or do I like the upside of a receiver more because of this split back situation?
It's all very, very well said and all valid points. And it's just one of those conversations that has a million different answers and a million different ways to go as far as, when we talk daily fantasy and the price, and you're looking for, home run hitters and upside when it comes to DFS. But when we're talking seasonal, I really can't speak on that because I get in that trap of how many people are in that league, what's the format, what's the scoring, and it gets wild. So it's just all, I guess maybe what we can take away from this is there's just a lot of different strategies and scenarios to get into. I'm a big note taker. I've been taking notes this whole time. So maybe I can make sense of my notes and what we've said and like put it out on paper for people to read maybe.
Yeah, we'll transition. So let's finish it out here. Rookie running back that's going to start.
That's Cam Akers, right? They drafted him in LA. He's gonna start right off the bat, isn't he?
I believe
Yes.
so.
Yeah, I don't see. I mean, and even real quick, just fooling around today, just looking at depth charts and dicking around, they got Jordan Taylor listed as their number one back in Indianapolis right now. So, but again, those could all be just speculative things, or I don't know. It's hard to say.
Now, if you want to look at like week 10, week 12, week 13, if you're talking about maybe a running back that could take over the starting role, a guy who you might want to look at as a deep sleeper in some of these fantasy leagues that you're looking at, you got to take a look at LaMichael Pirine. I mean, for the Jets, if for any chance that the Jets trade Le'Veon Bell, LaMichael Pirine has the same ability to do everything Le'Veon Bell is able to do, and he's younger. So if the Jets are in a situation where they can move Bell come week 6 or 7, you have to sit there and think maybe LaMichael Pirine can take over that starting spot. LaMichael Pirine had over 40 catches last year, and he rushed for, almost 6 yards per carry for Florida last season while catching 40 balls. So I think LaMichael Pirine is a deep sleeper, someone you could look at right there.
That's a nice pick because everyone right now is just stuck on the top 5 guys, top 10 guys that were, at each position. So that's a good call, long term, let's say.
Yes.
David, go ahead, man.
I mean, the ones to start right away, I definitely agree. I think Akers. I think CEH has a shot to beat Damian Williams out of the start. I mean, Damian has the most familiarity with that role right now, but just the way Clyde Helaire is, I think he could definitely step in day one if they feel he's more talented than Damian, especially with his injuries as well. I think early on that could definitely be a split type situation, but I think maybe towards the end of the year that one could definitely be more in favor of the running back or the rookie early or later on. But I mean, it's tough. There's a lot of veterans to rookies here that it's hard to say who's going to win out. I think Akers definitely just seems like he has the clearest shot because Henderson didn't do too much to take the role when Gurley was losing plays. And so I think Akers is definitely be the guy there.
I think you're going to see more than one. I think that Edwards-Helaire is going to start. I think that I can get behind Akers. I think DeAndre Swift is going to start. I think that you're going to see probably 4 or 5 of these guys start. And then I don't know if you go beyond that. It's starting with a monster impact and being a load carrier. I think we have to wait and see, right? We have to wait and see how these teams from, their philosophy plays out. Is it a 2 running back, 3 running back system? But I said this a few days ago in the draft video that the running back with where we're at with this COVID-19 stuff and where we're at with everything being closed down and there's no rookie OTAs. There's, we don't know when training camp is going to be. Running back is the position that's probably the easiest transition for rookies to come into because you've been running these same plays your entire life. 24 lead, 26 trap, 26 power. Those plays are those plays at every single level in football. And I think that you're going to see the running back position probably be the biggest impact position coming in because of the type of year it is. And I think you're going to see, like I said, 3, 4, 5 of these guys start, but it'll be interesting to see how much of a load they actually get. And if I was going to bet, I would take Edwards-Helaire is the guy that's got the biggest impact and starts day one. I just think he's got all the tools and he's in that couldn't get a better situation for a guy to go into, in my opinion.
I agree with you. It's easy as it gets when it comes to him being drafted in Kansas City.
Yep. All right, guys. So with that said, we'll be producing content. We'll keep producing content. Stay tuned. If you haven't done so already, make sure you click the subscribe button below, enable notifications so you don't miss any of the live videos we do on a daily basis. We'll be back with another edition of some sort of fantasy football video coming up. Some good news before we wrap this up. Yesterday, the NBA announced that May 1st, they'll be opening up their facilities. So from a daily fantasy standpoint, hopefully the NBA Players Association, they've been kind of going back and forth, and they've said that they want 3 weeks as like a training camp to open up. So hopefully by the 1st of June, we've got something lined up where we're bringing you guys all the sports that we provide on a daily basis. I know golf has said that they're looking to come back in the middle of May to the beginning of June. So we'll start rolling content out. I thank you guys again for being on the video. Until next time, guys, peace out.